Let's start with a concept we all think we understand: wealth. For centuries, our ideas about it have been shaped by a simple, but, well, a deeply flawed story. Today, we're going to take that story apart, piece by piece, and build a new one from the ground up. So ask yourself this: when someone gets rich, does that mean they had to have taken that money from somebody else? Is the whole economic pie a fixed size, where for you to get a bigger slice, someone else has to get a smaller one? You know, for a lot of people, this is a core belief, the idea that the whole system is basically just exploitation. But what if that entire idea is just wrong? Okay, let's really dig into this. The old myth, right, it paints a picture of wealth like it's a limited resource, something that can't be created. In that world, profit isn't earned, it's taken. But the reality is, we create wealth. Everything you see around you, we built it. The pie isn't fixed at all, it's always getting bigger. And profit? That's just what you get for creating something that other people find valuable. So to really get a handle on this new reality, we have to completely change how we define wealth itself. It's not about piles of money in a vault. The real idea is something much more active. You see, we tend to think of wealth as just money, but the real definition, the one that matters, is the ability to cause transformations. The ability to turn one thing into another thing of greater value. Think about it. Can you turn electricity into a car? Can you turn labor into oil? That power to transform things is wealth. And what's the key ingredient that lets us do that? It's not just money or machines, it's knowledge. And here's a great way to think about it. The caveman was standing on the exact same ground we are, with all the same raw materials. But to him, uranium was just a rock. Oil was just some gross, sticky stuff on the ground. Almost everything that we call wealth today is just knowledge. It's the know-how to take the raw stuff of the planet and turn it into something we actually want and need. So if wealth really is knowledge, we have to understand that not all knowledge is the same. The real key, the thing that unlocks true wealth creation, is something called specific knowledge. You know, we're kind of taught that you can learn anything in a classroom, right? Well, that's just not true. The most valuable, the most interesting stuff, it can't be taught, but it can be learned. And that learning comes from who you are deep down, from skills you picked up as a kid, or from real hands-on experience where you're just learning to recognize patterns in a super complex environment. So how do you even spot this kind of knowledge? Well, you find it by just following what you're genuinely curious about, not what's trendy. And here's the thing, it can't be automated. If it could be, it wouldn't be special. You get it through apprenticeships, through actually doing the thing. And maybe most importantly, it feels like play to you, even when other people look at it and think, wow, that's hard work. It's that unique spot where your natural talents and your passions meet. So here's the bottom line. If you can learn it in a class, then guess what? So can everybody else. And if everybody can learn it, then eventually we can teach a computer to do it and then a robot. And in that world, you are completely replaceable. Your page just becomes whatever the lowest amount is to get you to do the job. True wealth comes from the kind of knowledge that can't be turned into a commodity. Okay, so this all leads to the big question, probably the one you're asking right now. How do you find your specific knowledge? How do you find that unique edge? And the answer isn't something you can just figure out by thinking really hard. You find it by observing. You have to actually look back at your own life, even back to when you were a kid, and just notice what you did. What did you spend your time on without anyone telling you to? What were you just naturally good at, way before you ever thought about a career? So let me give you an example. Imagine someone who, for years, believed their entire purpose was to be a scientist. They looked up to scientists, thought they were the most important people in the world. That passion is genuine, it's real, but it might actually be hiding their true, unique skills. So here's how you can actually break that down for yourself. First, you acknowledge the passion. In this case, it was science. But then, and this is key, you have to observe your innate skills. What were you actually doing all that time? Maybe it wasn't just science, but it was also tinkering with tech, breaking down complicated ideas for people, understanding how businesses work. Your specific knowledge, your edge, is right there at the intersection of that passion for science and those natural skills for business and tech. And you know what's funny? A lot of the time, other people can see this in us way before we can see it in ourselves. The first person to spot this person's real talent was his mom. When he was 15, telling everyone he'd be an astrophysicist, she just calls out from the kitchen, "No, you're gonna go into business." Why? Because she'd already noticed that he couldn't even walk down the street without analyzing the business model of the local pizza place. She saw the skill he was totally blind to. So once you have an idea, maybe just an inkling of what your specific knowledge might be, where do you go to grow it? Well, the answer lies in one of the oldest forms of education there is. You see, the absolute best careers, they're apprenticeships. And why is that? It's because they're built around skills that society still hasn't figured out how to mass produce or automate. This is where the real specific knowledge gets passed on, not in a classroom, but on the job, through experience, learning from a master. There's this classic story about it. When a young Warren Buffett graduated, he went to his hero, the legendary investor Benjamin Graham, and offered to work for him for free. And Graham's response was just incredible. He said, "You're overpriced. Free is overpriced." And Graham was absolutely right. The specific knowledge Buffett was about to learn was so incredibly valuable, Buffett should have been paying him for the opportunity. That's the real power of a true apprenticeship. So as we wrap this up, I want to leave you with one single question, a question that really gets to the heart of everything we've talked about today. Take a moment. Think about your life, your hobbies, the things you get lost in. What is the one thing that feels like play to you but looks like work to everybody else? The answer to that question, it's more than just an interesting thought. It might just be the key to unlocking your own unique way of creating wealth. Like, share, subscribe to The Wise Cut, and let me know your thoughts in the comments.